Hi everyone, welcome back. Today's video is going to be my updated makeup collection for 2018. I haven't filmed one since we've moved into the new condo, so I thought I would show you my new setup and everything that is currently in my collection. Let's get into it. Alright, so here's my brand new setup in the condo. I still have the same unit I had before that houses a lot of my makeup, along with some of those shelves that you would have seen before. But I've also added a bookcase over here that houses a lot of my palettes. Of course, it is a little bit split up, but when you have this much makeup, you kind of have to do it that way. The bulk of stuff that I use and need at my hands at the ready is over on this area. And over on the bookcase are items that are kind of like a single use. Like there's palettes on there and lipsticks, but we'll get into closer detail with that in a moment. Coming a little bit closer so you can see how this works out, my bookcase is over in the corner, and then sort of like my makeshift vanity with all of those items is off to the side. It's pushed against a wall, obviously. And then I have a little stool down here that I use to sit on in front of this. And I do have two mirrors. I have this one from IKEA, which I put on the wall, but I honestly really don't use it. It's too high and too big to really do any kind of close-up makeup. But I use this smaller one that's in front of a ring light to do my day-to-day makeup. We're first gonna go through everything that's sitting on this bookcase shelf. I've mentioned this before, but I really like to line up my palettes as if they're books. So I really like putting them on bookcase shelves because I feel like it makes it really accessible. And I really appreciate when brands have the palette and brand name on the spine of the palette. It doesn't happen very often, but when it's there, it makes it so much easier to grab a palette. I mean, in general, I know what each palette sort of looks like, but it's so much easier if the name is printed on that spine. All right, we're gonna start off on the top shelf. I am gonna go through what I have briefly, but I am not gonna go into super detail on my palettes because I am planning on doing an updated palette collection video. I did one a few years ago and it's definitely overdue for an update, so we'll kind of speed through this a little bit. I keep my Z palettes over here. These contain anything that's like a loose eyeshadow that doesn't come in a palette, so anything that's Sugar Pill, MAC, these are my MAC palettes here, Makeup Geek, stuff like that. Then I have some sleek palettes, and then my Urban Decay goes to about here. These are ordered by brand. I prefer to do it that way. The ones after the Urban Decay palettes tend to be a little bit more of the one-offs. So I've got like Suva Beauty, Lorac, Laura Mercier, Juvia's Place, and then there's like Winky Lux back there, and my Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes are there as well. Then I also have, sadly, a loose one here because I'm kind of running out of space already. These are my smaller palettes. So I've got like a small Kat Von D quad. These are my Charlotte Tilbury quads. And then back here I've got like a Becca one. Moving down to the second shelf from the top, these are my palettes that are used the most frequently. And I put them on this shelf because this is the one that I can reach the easiest. So these are all my Kat Von D palettes right up to here. I've got a Pinky Rose palette in here. There's the Visart Editorial Brights. And then this new one that I just got by Tease Cosmetics. It's the Riot Extreme palette, and from the outer packaging, you would never know that this thing was interesting, but surprise, it actually is. I've got my Violet Boss palettes, and then everything from here to the end is Too Faced. Clearly, I like the brand, so I like to keep all of these together and readily accessible because I do use them very frequently. Moving down to the third shelf from the top, these are my lipsticks and a few extra palettes that just didn't fit on the two shelves above. I really don't know why I thought all of my palettes were gonna fit on two shelves because they really do not. I do need more space at this point, so I'm probably gonna have to build more shelves on the wall. But for now, this is how it's gonna sit. So this is all of my Tarte stuff. Tarte palettes here that are the more normal shape, and then I've got the cylindrical ones here along with I always want to call it the seashell palette, but it's the Be a Mermaid and Make Waves palette. I have to sit this upright because I really don't know how else to deal with that thing. The Jaclyn Hill palette is back there, and I put it like this because it blocks anything from like falling out this edge, which I really don't like this bookcase. It's from IKEA, by the way. Do not buy it. It's wobbly. Don't recommend it. And then I've got a Too Faced Grand Hotel Cafe here. I think that was the first ever Too Faced PR holiday item I ever got, so I wanted to keep it in the box because I thought it was cute. And then these are all my lipsticks. I do like to break them apart by brand. So over in this corner, I have all of my beloved Maybelline matte inks. I have almost every single shade. I'm just missing a few of the more, I think, purple ones and maybe a few nudes. but these are fantastic. Easily one of my favorite lip products ever. Actually, I think it is my favorite lip product ever. And then the predecessor to the Maybelline matte inks are these Too Faced melted liquefied lipsticks. I was obsessed with these when they first came out, that I pretty much bought every single shade. I think I've decluttered some of the chocolate shades, but I've kept pretty much every other one because I love them so much. There are also some Makeup Forever Artist acrylics in here as well. This next container is a bunch of liquid lipsticks, and this one is mostly Kat Von D. Those are all the mini ones down here. I really like her holiday sets when she releases like 6 shades, is it? Because then you get a wide variety of shades in small packaging, because I really do not need, clearly, a full-size lipstick. I also have a bunch of the Ciate glitter flips in here, a bunch of Tarte ones, and I've got some ones by Inglot as well. This next one back here is another bunch of Too Faced lipsticks. These ones are from their most recent natural collection. I think it was called the It Comes Naturally collection. So I've got all of those shades in there. And then I've got a bunch of these La Creme lipsticks, which are some of my absolute favorites, but they, I don't think, produce any more new shades for these. These are so comfortable to wear, and they've got kind of like a lemon scent, which is pretty unique for a lipstick. I feel like everybody goes with the vanilla scent, but the lemon scent was so, so nice. And then I've got a few of their melted matte lipsticks in here. Mostly these are like special colors. I don't love the formula on this. I used to like it, but I felt like in more recent years I've been liking other things more, so I really tend to keep only the special ones. So I've got like this green here, which is really unique, and then I've got the 2 holiday launches because they had like special holiday scents. And then this one contains all of my Bite lipsticks and a mini Tom Ford one. This has pretty much all of the new Spice collection, and then there's a bunch of minis, again, which I love. Nothing beats a mini lipstick. I do not need a full size, so I just keep these all together. Out in front on a display unit, I have all of my MAC lipsticks on the first 2 rows, and then the back rows, I'm just going to try to angle this a little bit. The back rows have NARS, Smashbox, Maybelline, and then my Revlon lipsticks. There's a Bourjois in there, a NYX one, and then some Wet n Wild ones here as well. This little unit has my Charlotte Tilbury lipsticks, a Too Faced peach, part of that peach collection lipstick, some Urban Decay ones, and then this fun Lancome, pretty much one of those lip oils. And moving down to the last row that has makeup on it in this bookcase, this is pretty much my backup area and then my glitters. So I've got a huge amount of the Real Techniques Miracle Complexion sponges because I go through those all the time. This one has a bunch of brow products in here. I've got a bunch of the NYX Micro Brow. That's no shock. I think I've got 8 more right now. A bunch of the It Cosmetics Brow Power. There's some black pencils in here. There's some lash glue. There's a chapstick pumpkin pie backup because that's my favorite scent of chapstick. And then this one here has some primer in it, some mascara minis, eyeshadow primer. There's a Shiseido Synchro Skin here, and then more It Cosmetics Brow Power. Oh, and this one is a Too Faced glitter adhesive, which I'm almost done with the one I have right now, so I'm gonna be opening that pretty soon. And then this container was from a MAC holiday set, but it just houses like knickknacks really. So I've got a small mirror, a magnet to pull out my Inglot eyeshadows from their pans, and then a whole bunch of pencil sharpeners. And then my glitters. So this case has every single one of my glitters in here, including some pigments. The glitters are predominantly Lit Cosmetics at the bottom, and then I've got a random mash of like glitters from MAC, Inglot, there's some Too Faced glitter in there, and I just keep them in this container because if I want a glitter, I know where to go for it. All right, moving on to the vanity area, I'm gonna cover the 3 shelves that are floating shelves that are attached to the wall. So there's one here, and then one over there. So this top shelf is the least easiest to reach when I'm sitting down over there. So this stuff that I use very infrequently. I have an RCMA no color powder. This is fantastic for setting any kind of face makeup, but I really just don't use powder that often, so I keep it kind of far away. I've got a singular setting spray. Again, it's not something I really use, but this one seemed to be decent. It's by Wet n Wild, so I kind of just keep it up here for when I need it. I've got a bunch of colored contacts back here that were used for Halloween costumes, but I don't need them right now. This one is a lit, clearly liquid glitter base. This houses a bunch of my lashes that I tend to be using right now. Keep them in this little case, and I tend to only really use them for filming or special events, so I don't really need them every single day. Got another loose powder here, a Wet n Wild Brulee eyeshadow. Love this color, but I'm trying to use up another color that's very similar to it right now. My Inglot Duraline and some Lash adhesive. The next row down has all of my foundations. Now, I've said before, I'm not somebody who loves foundation, and for me, this is keeping it pretty minimal, but even then, I feel like I've got too much. Unless I love a foundation to absolute pieces, I tend to declutter it and move it on to friends. So these are foundations that I desperately love. And I will only ever keep foundation that I am over the moon about. So I've got Bourjois Healthy Mix Serum Foundation. I have a Revlon Color Stay here. And it, by the way, this does go from lightest to darkest, so I know what to reach for depending on the month. I have a Wet n Wild Photo Focus Foundation, the Inglot Beautifier Tinted Cream, the Too Faced Peach Perfect Foundation, Inglot HD, another Bourjois Healthy Mix Serum. These two Boots No. 7 Instant Radiance ones, I put them kind of like stacked on top of each other because I use them together, because I like the color combination together, not separately. I've got a Dermablend Smooth Liquid Camo, another Revlon Color Stay back here. This one's quite dark. And then the Estee Lauder Double Wear Light, which I love, but I only have this one shade and it's generally too dark for me. So I'm hoping that at some point this summer I will get to that shade. All right, moving on to this last shelf. I've only recently just moved this around and I really hope it's gonna work out for me. I found that I was not reaching for my face palettes because they were back on the bookcase, and I was treating them more like eyeshadow palettes. Well, they're not. I want to be using it with the rest of my face makeup, so I've moved them over here in the hopes that it will make me use them a little bit more. I mean, I have been using them, but just not as regularly as I want it to be. So I've got my Anastasia Beverly Hills Glow Kits here. I've got some Tarte blush palettes, and then the Too Faced Natural Face palette, and then there's the Jaclyn Hill Becca palette back here. I don't love these kinds of palettes with this kind of like slightly sticky plastic packaging, mostly because things tend to stick to it, and I've actually pulled out one of these palettes and another one's been stuck to it and they've kind of like fallen to the ground. So far nothing has busted to the point where I can't repair it, but they make me very nervous. And then of course I've got my Kat Von D Alchemist palette because I use this thing all the time. I've got a bunch of orphan lipsticks here. These are ones that I don't use that often, and I'm kind of thinking about whether or not I want to get rid of them. I do really like them, but I haven't been reaching for them, so I have to make a decision on them at some point. They are the Clinique like lip pops. These are pretty translucent. And then the other ones here are the Lancome tints. Also over here I have all of my Inglot eyeshadows. I reach for Inglot pretty frequently, so I like to have them readily accessible, generally because I want like a single color that I know Inglot does really well. So these are all of my palettes. I've got the JLo one here, and then a bunch of their mini ones, and then a face powder, and then all of my other eyeshadows are in here. All right, moving on to the front of the desk. This is everything that I want to have quick and easy access to when I'm doing my makeup, because obviously I sit right in front of it. I've got a mirror here. This is my main mirror that I do all of my makeup with. There's nothing special about it. My brother-in-law did buy it for me one Christmas and I found it was perfect. I use it in all of my videos, which you don't see because it's below the camera frame, but I also use it day to day. So I'm just gonna move that because it's gonna take up too much space. But I've also got a mini ring light here, and that may seem really excessive to most people. It's not on right now, by the way, otherwise it'd be too blinding. But I have found that I am so used to having bright lights to do my makeup that I basically need it at this point. And also this corner of the bedroom is not particularly bright in the morning because the window is small, which is nice to keep the light out when you're sleeping, but it's not conducive with doing your makeup in the morning. So I did buy a small ring light. This is a 12-inch one by Newer. I think it was under 100 Canadian. And honestly, best investment ever. I'm using an 18-inch ring light to light this whole area, but this is so important for me day to day. I'm in love with it. And I got a mini stand for it off of like eBay, and it fits perfectly on the desk. Okay, moving on to what's actually on the desk. I keep these are all candle holders, by the way, that I've emptied out. This has cotton rounds and Q-tips in here because I use them every single time I do my makeup. And I use those in connection with the Bioderma Micelle solution. This is everything to me. I clean up so many makeup mistakes with this, including fallout from eyeshadow. I have just a little bit of a tray here. This was one of those Sephora Point Perks. And I put makeup that I need to be testing in here, and currently it's empty. This container has all of the brow products that I use day to day. Honestly, I pretty much use the It Cosmetics one and the NYX one together, but the rest of them are there for when I'm filming videos because I tend to do like a darker brow for that. This has all of my face brushes in here. I have a Too Faced Festival Refresh Spray, a powder that I am desperately trying to use up by Hourglass. There is a little bit of pan happening in there. This face powder by Klein that I forget about all the time, so I try to keep it out, so I'll try to use it, but honestly I always forget to use powder. I have small makeup brushes here for any kind of fine detail work. I moved the camera over so I could reach these a bit better. So I think I covered that these are all my small eyeshadow brushes. Anything that I need to do fine detail work, I'll reach for this thing. I don't use this kind of stuff very often, so it kind of just like stays behind my mirror away from me. This container has all of my colorful eyeliners or anything. Honestly, that's a pencil eyeliner, a glitter liner, which I tend to use for freckles all the time. This has like my NYX Jumbo eyeshadow pencil in milk. Anything that is something that I use fairly infrequently but tends to be like a pen format, I'll put in here. This one has all of my regular eyeshadow brushes. This is probably my most used area for brushes. And then this little container down here has more like day-to-day necessary items. So lash curler, Real Technique sponge, I've got a mascara in there, lip primer, eyeshadow primers, liquid liner, a lip brush in case I need one of those, black pencil liner, and some tweezers. I have an eyeshadow quad down here by MAC. I am trying so hard to use these eyeshadows up. This has been my brow bone highlight for I don't even know how many years at this point, and I cannot seem to finish it. So just using those up. So this section over here is all of my more fun stuff. These are all of my Stila liquid glitters. I like having them super handy because I use them quite regularly. I've got a bunch of fun, colorful gel liners here by Tarte. I've got this amazing Suva Beauty. It's pretty much like a water activated paint. And then some liquid highlighters, this one by Cover FX, some NARS multi-sticks, and then this is kind of like a catch-all drawer for lip products that I don't necessarily use all the time, and it tends to be mostly lip gloss that lives in here. Got a bunch of lip pencils back here, a little bit more unique lip color shades, and then this is my concealer area. I've got a bunch of them, but honestly I never use concealer, so you won't find me reaching for those very often. Okay, now this does have two pull-out drawers, but it's a little bit hard to see all of them just when I pull them out, so I'm gonna pull one of these out and put it on the bed and show you what's inside. So the drawer to my left is a mix of bronzers, highlighters, a bunch of single eyeshadows or pigments, more pigments back here, and then a bunch of eyeshadows as well. I mostly reach for this drawer when I need my highlighters or bronzers though, so this area here is all highlighters, sort of in this kind of quadrant area. So I've got a bunch of Too Faced in here. I've got some hard candy, more Too Faced, Wet n Wild, Tarte, this ancient MAC Silver Dusk powder. This thing is very old, but I love it to pieces and it's powder, so I'm not throwing it out. A bunch of MAC ones back here as well. My Becca ones, I use those pretty frequently, so they tend to be by the front. And then my bronzers over here tend to be ordered from season that I'm using them. So I pretty much moved all of my darker bronzers to the front so that I have easier access at them. My lighter ones get pushed to the back as the months go by, and then I'll revert when the winter shows up again. I've got a bunch of MAC mineralized eyeshadows back here. These used to be my absolute favorite things, but I really don't think they put them out anymore. And I've since moved on with my makeup taste, but I really like them, so I've kept them. I've got a bunch of Illamasqua pigments back here. I've got some of the Naked Cosmetics stacks back here as well. A bunch of Makeup Geek pigments, Tarte pigments, some Kat Von D singles, although I have to tell you, I reach so infrequently for eyeshadow singles that I really wish that I just had these in a palette. I've got some ColourPop singles here. I have not kept most of my ColourPop singles. I used to have, I think, 20 at one point. I just never reach for them. I cannot handle using my fingers to apply them, and they're better with your fingers. Bunch of L'Oreal Infallible, I guess these are basically pigments. These are fantastic. One of the best eyeshadows that the drugstore makes, and some MAC pigments as well. So the drawer on the right is pretty much my blushes and eyelashes drawer. I've got a lot of blush, apparently. I didn't really realize how much more I had of it compared to bronzers and highlighters, but anyway. Got a bunch of Wet n Wild blushes back here. This one is, I think it's, yeah, it's Hard Candy. Fox in a Box. They recently brought these back, but this thing was the best blush, I think, from the drugstore for ages, and I don't think they've brought back the same colors, which is really unfortunate. I've got a bunch of Illamasqua blushes in here, these huge Milani Rose ones, a bunch of Too Faced also stacked in here. I've got the Too Faced Sweet Peach Glow kit back here. Love this thing. I've got some Urban Decay Tarte, more Too Faced, some NYX. I never get tired of looking at this one. Oh, look how pretty that is. Essence, some MAC, more MAC here as well. A bunch of random, just like one-off ones. Becca, then I've got NARS, Hourglass, Too Faced, Laura Geller. Why were these like limited edition and no longer available? I don't understand. These are so good. And one of these super old NYX ones that I just refuse to let go. Do you remember when everybody had these? Can't get rid of it. Got an Hourglass blush palette back here, and then a Stila convertible color palette there as well. There's a Charlotte Tilbury blush back here just because it's so big and honestly it doesn't really fit with the rest of them. But I've got Tarte lashes, Ardell lashes, a bunch of House of Lashes as well. Huda Beauty, these are velour. And then my favorites over here are these Esquito ones. I just have a bunch of them. All right, I've zoomed you back out for one final look so you can kind of see how everything sort of fits together. And this is my new setup in the condo. It works out really well. I do need more shelving space for sure. I'll probably end up putting more on the wall. But until I get that sorted, this is pretty much the setup that I'm working with. And that's it for my makeup collection tour. Hopefully you liked seeing my new setup and all the products that are currently in my collection. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I'll talk to you next time. Bye.